Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Augusto Argandoña Fine Arts. Anytime in the course of this narrated tutorial, you can click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And also I would appreciate if you send me your comments in regards to this video, as well as all the other videos or any other videos in my YouTube channel. And if you want to learn more about my virtual classes or want to see my paintings, you can do so in my website at aafinearts.com. This tutorial is about painting a street scene in watercolors. Streets that involves buildings, trees, cars, people, etc. And as the image will be in this case, it will involve all of those items. And this particular scene is of a street and a very iconic building in the city of Bradenton, Florida. It's just north of Sarasota. It has a very tropical look. There's a lot of palm trees, and so that's the way I'm going to paint it. I'm making some changes in regards to the number of cars. I'm eliminating some, but I'm including some people which are not in the reference photo, etc. But that's the way I introduce different aspects into my paintings. The cars on the opposite street, side of the street, look a little strange the way they are parked, but that's because in that city they, unlike most of the cities in Florida, it is allowed to do parking diagonally. In most towns, most cities in Florida, you can park parallel to the curb, but in that city you can park diagonally to the curbs, and that's why these cars will end up looking a little strange in the painting. Anyway, without much ado, let's do the fun part of this demonstration, and that's the painting part. So I'm going to get myself positioned here and start the painting. I'm using a 140-pound cold press paper. That's paper of my choice. I prefer to. I worked on rough paper. I worked on 300-pound watercolor paper, but my preference is 140 pound. It's ideally suited for the way I paint, and I use a variety of pigments. Some from different brands, so I don't want to mention the brands, but it's they're fairly popular brands. Some made in the US, some made in England. I guess you probably figured out which ones they are. So I will start by wetting the upper area, the sky area. Quite a bit of water there in that area, but I'm skipping the areas where the building is going to be because I want to have some crispness there. So I'm just carefully coming down and coming over the borders of that building, and I'm going to add more water into this area, coming down all the way down to the street level. And this building on the right hand side, I don't care if it has a little bit of color of the sky, so I'm going to just keep adding a little bit more water here, like that. As you will probably notice in this demonstration, unlike many artists who prefer to work with round brushes, especially mop brushes, I'm more partial to the flat brushes. I feel far more comfortable painting with flat brushes. So that's pretty much it for the water in that area. I'm going to use a little bit of manganese blue and a little bit of cobalt blue, primarily cobalt blue. and start bringing some of those colors into this area, particularly around the area where the building will be, a little bit more into that area, and let the water run down to the edges of the building, just like it's doing here. And so gravity kind of takes care of the way I'm painting the sky. And all the way down here, a little lighter towards the bottom portion, and I'm gonna blend those areas over here, and I'm gonna bring some of that here. Leave a little bit of white here and there, and that's pretty much it for the sky. I'm gonna let that dry. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and wet the lower area, including the cars, the people, and the road, the street. Add some water here. Just do all of that like that. And I'm going to use a little bit of brown matter with this cobalt blue that is already in my palette. Make a gray tone and just bring some of that gray with some quick strokes. Use the strokes in the direction of the perspective on the street. I'm also going to use a little bit of cobalt, yellow ochre, but this time with a touch of ultramarine blue. Change from cobalt blue to the ultramarine blue. A little bit more of the yellow ochre. Make a different type of gray. Just add a few strokes like that there, like that, there we are. Also, a little bit of burnt umber. Just a few strokes like that. It's gonna be quite a bit of sunlight here, so some of that over here too, like that. There we are, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna bring that over here too. There, that's it. So my sky is drying rather nicely. So about this area, that's still wet. All of this area is pretty wet still. So while that is drying, I'm gonna go ahead and add some of the colors on the buildings, especially these buildings over here. I don't want to touch these buildings here, this building, because I don't want pigment from these areas to run into the sky. But this building, the right side of this building and the right side of this building will be in sunlight, so I'm going to leave those plain white. But I'm going to start working on the shadow side of this building. And for that, I'm going to use a little bit of rose madder with manganese blue. Makes a really nice gray. Very nice, very ideally suited for a shadow color. So I'm gonna do that there, like that. There, like that. And then right on top of that, I'm gonna bring some burnt sienna, very light burnt sienna. Like that. And before that dries, I'm going to combine also a little sepia with the rose madder. More rose madder than sepia, actually. There we are. Bring it right down. That's good. And Right after that, I'm going to bring in some of the cobalt blue. Very little cobalt blue. Clean cobalt blue. Right on top of that. There. Now that color, that wall has the color that I wanted, and also has a slight touch of the blue, reflective color from the sky. So that's the way it's done. In fact, I'm going to add just a little bit more blue. There. There we are. Okay. And to warm it up, I'm going to bring in just another touch of the burnt sienna. There. That's the way. That's good. So I'm going to leave that alone. Now this area, this is drying really nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and use some of the ultramarine blue this time with the rose madder. And a little bit of the burnt sienna. And come back over here and give a little light touch to the entire section of the building on the shadow side, like that. Before that dries, I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the ultramarine blue. There we are. Bring it really sharp line over here. And a little bit more of the rose madder. Like that. And lastly, I think I'm going to bring in some sepia, very light sepia. There we are, there. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to change brushes now and with a smaller round brush, and I'm going to pick up the same colors, rose madder, ultramarine blue. This time I'm going to mix them together. And a little touch of the sepia. I'll do this areas over here that are, oops, that sky is still kind of dry, wet actually. I'm going to do some of the details. There we are. Something over here. Okay, there. It's a little bit strong. I'm going to remove some of that. Okay, so now come back over here. There's a line, some architectural element over here like that. And there's some verticals. There's some other architectural features over there. And there like that. Also there's some windows there on the sunlight like that. I'm going to go ahead and do this a little darker. There. Like that. A little line there. And that's pretty much it from that side. Well, I have those colors. I'm going to go ahead and do some of that detail in here too. There. And there's also another section over here that has some shade section. Like that. All right. Well, this is pretty much dry. So now I'm going to go ahead and start doing the cars. I'm going to pick different colors. Some will be white, and I'm going to get some gray. I'm going to do some gray on this car. There we go. A little bit of blue mixed there. Some ultramarine. See that there. We'll touch that later. I'm going to do this one. It's going to be a little darker, maybe black. A little bit more water in my brush, and pick up some sepia mixed with some ultramarine blue, and darken this car a little bit. There we are. Put the wheel over here, the front wheel, the real wheel, and then the wheel like that, and the other wheel. I think I'm going to make it, bring a little bit of red. There. A little bit more of the ultramarine. Come down over here. And the sepia. And blend all of this right into the shadow and the wheel. Bring a little bit of burnt umber into that too. And right over here like that. Go there, and there we are. Now get a little bit more ultramarine blue with the sepia under the windows. That. Same thing on this car. And the side window there, yeah. Now do the rest of the car. of sepia. Those wheels. And the shadow side of the underneath the car. Pretty dark. Blend that right into that wheelbase. Darken that window and this window. There we are. Now we just put some of the red for the tail lights, and those cars are done. I'm gonna do one more car over here. Like that. There we are. And also, I'm going to go ahead and do this, the people, get some brown, a little bit of ultramarine, and let this person over here. Same over here, same thing. There we are. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up some reddish color and do this color. Pick up some sepia and a little bit more of that red, and do some of the darker colors, the reflections. There we are. Now we'll blend all of that with a little bit of water. There we do a little bit of a little darker car behind. Wheel and the rest of the car. Wheel over here. Wheel over here. Make those wheels a little bit darker. And blend that with the shadows underneath those cars. There we are. A little lighter color over here, and this might be gray. There. All right. But now this should be almost dry, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to enlarge my reference image and do this building and pick up some brown matter, a little bit of burnt sienna, not too much. Do this rooftops, they're kind of reddish. smaller brush, smaller round brush, and do the detailing. Get some sepia and ultramarine blue. Make them sort of a black. And this one has a name, some type. I think it's called the Hampton Inn, something like that. There's some of the detailing here. There's little 3 windows over here. There we are. There's another 3 windows, another set of windows over here. A little detail in there. Lighten up some of this color. There. Some architectural details. These windows. There we are. Some architectural detail over here too, like that. And then there's a window over here, and a window over here, and it has some type of decoration. Like that. There. Now, a little bit more white in my brush, and I will do these other windows. There. That's it. Have a little bit of that over here too. A little bit of a few lines for some of those architectural details. There. And we come back over here and darken some of these areas. And that's pretty much it. Before that dries though, I'm going to take a small brush, a flat brush, and add a little bit of a touch of cobalt blue to the whole thing. There. There, that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to let that dry. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and paint this other building on this side. I burnt some burnt umber. Mostly just on burnt umber there. Not too much. A little bit of brown matter and gray color. There. Some edges for some of those palm trees. And there's some sepia and cobalt blue. And there's some of these windows over here. Just kind of don't show too much detail there because I want to kind of leave it alone like that. This building on the other side, on this side also has some tile roof. But I'm gonna leave that alone for some aspects because there's some palm trees over there. I'm gonna also add a little bit of cobalt blue to that area because this is in the shade too. And this is an architectural detail here. We'll darken this wall, and these openings. There we are. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some of this color over here. Sporadically like that, because there's going to be some greenery there. Okay, so now I'm also going to take, there's a nice bush over here, edging. So I'm going to use some aureole in yellow, a little bit of raw sienna, and cerulean blue. For the sunny side of this bush. That's too much. A little less. A little bit more aureole in yellow. A bit more raw sienna. Okay, so I'm gonna remove some of that. And then the lower area will have a very dark green because that's in the shade. We'll use some under sea green, a little bit of sepia, and I'm going to use some ultramarine blue. Really dark combination. Come down over here like this. A little bit of burnt umber mixed into that with undersea green. A little bit more of the ultramarine. And at the edge of that sidewalk, like that, there. And over here, I'm going to go ahead and do these little bushes. And on the other side, smaller trees, things like that. There we are. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of water here and blend all of this into those palm trees. Into this vegetation over here, like that. And then we get a smaller brush and do those palm trees. With plenty of sepia. We use some permanent subgreen this time, and a little bit of Payne's gray, and do these palm trees. Like that. royal palms. Change brushes. There we are. Some more paints gray and the sepia and the green. There. There's more of the sepia and the green. There we are. That's the way to do it. Now I'm going to make a nice combination of burnt umber and the sea green and bring some of that over here too. Too dark. A little bit of water. A little bit more lighter into the distance. There we go. A bit more of that brown for some of this vegetation that's over here, and border those cars and right down into the street like that. A little bit more of the undersea green. Bring some of that over here. Now use that green to block off the areas around the cars and the base of the building. And blend it right into the greenery over here. Like that. Now, I'm going to change brushes again with a smaller round brush and do the other palm trees. I'm going to use the same colors I used before, the permanent sap green, a little bit of sepia, and ultramarine, and do this palm trees over here. Royal palms. A little bit more sepia. Like that. All of this, a lot of palm trees over here. All those royal palms. There we are. A lot of palm trees. These are much larger palms. Like that. A little bit more of the green. this time with some Payne's gray. A little bit of the sepia. The lower area of this building is pretty much covered by the palm trees. So that's the way I'm gonna do it. There's some large palm trees over here too. Like that. These are much darker. But they are all together. So I'm going to paint them like that. Like that. A little bit more of those palm trees, especially over here. Like that. Like that. Some of these palm trees over here are going to be much darker. This road has quite a few palm trees. Like that. Okay, so now I'm going to get some sepia, a little bit of brown matter, and cobalt blue, and mostly cobalt blue, and do the trunks. There we are. There. Something over here. A little bit more water in my brush, and do a little bit more of those trunks. Like that. And there's some greenery here too, so might as well do that too. It's kind of a brownish type green. And some over here on the other side of these cars. A little darker over here, right down by the sidewalk. There. Put a little bit of sepia there too. There's some of the green over here in front of that building. And these greens need to be a little darker, So I'm gonna darken those with sepia and Payne's gray, especially over here. There we go. Okay. And then darken some of this area over here too. But at the same time, put another layer of greenery for the trees that are over here. And also need to darken this side, these trees over here. There. In fact, I don't need too much texture over here. I'm going to remove some of that texture. There we go. And while that's drying, I'm going to pick up my smaller flat brush and get some brown matter and ultramarine blue and out of the shadows over here on the, all of this is casting a shadow right onto that with the person. Over here too, that person. All these bushes are casting a shadow over here. And I'm blending that shadows right into the bushes. Blending them in like that, like that. Pick up a little bit more of that color. And some of these trees over here, the trees on the other side of this will be casting some shadows too. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more shadow color just for good measure here. Connect that shadows right into the underneath of the card. And do something over here and do this curve. Like that. Put this, some shadows over here, connect them with this curve. Darken those areas, and like that. Darken this curve also, like that there. And before this, my paper dries, I'm going to add these trunks for these palm trees. There. There we go. And we're also going to add this a little bit darker areas for this palm tree trunks. And finish those cars that are on the opposite side of the street. Do the wheels on the shadow side, like that. Do this a little bit more a little bit more dark on this side of this car. There, like that. There we are. Now, get some of this gray that I have and add some strokes onto the street. Like that. A little bit more shadow over here. And I can tell that my building, for the facade of that building, needs a little bit more blue. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue here. This time I'm using some manganese blue. There we are. That's better. I'll remove some of this from those palm trees. There we are. And I'm going to soften this edge. Show the sunlight, soften that. There, like that. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more color there. There we are. And the painting is almost done. So what I will do here is I'm going to darken some of the greenery in these palm trees. Like that. I should do that with a smaller round brush. Get some of this dark green. Effect of those palm trees, the fronds of the palm trees. Like that. There we go. Okay, and the painting is done. So I'm going to go ahead and sign it, and that should be done. I'm going to use a little bit of a sepia with this green and put my signature here. There we go. Now I'm going to remove this tape, put all of this on a darker background so you can see and appreciate more. Let's see how this looks. There we are. So remove that. Remove this upper area. And here comes the dark background. And there it is. I'm going to minimize it a little bit so you can see. There. This street scene in downtown Bradenton, Florida. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed my painting. And please visit my website at aafinearts.com. There you will see more information about my classes, my virtual classes, and selections of my paintings and prints. Thank you again. Until next time.